Good morning and welcome back to News Center. Let's now shift gears and speak about the Ethiopian Airlines flight that crashed, killing all the passengers aboard, including 32 Kenyans in March this year. Now, following that crash, families of the victims have been pursuing justice, with others moving to court to sue Boeing, the maker of the plane. Let's now speak to one of the lawyers pursuing this case, Manuel von Ribbeck, who is an attorney of law from US-based law firm Ribbeck Law. Manuel, good morning. Many thanks for making time for us in News Center today.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to the show.
Ribbeck Law is undertaking a big step today, filing a lawsuit against aircraft maker Boeing on behalf of about 50 families, 66 families you mentioned earlier today. Tell us a bit more about this.
Okay, well, we're based in Chicago, and we've been working for the last 10 months in the Lion Air case, and we are now beginning to file cases in the Ethiopian Airlines case. So in total, in both cases, we represent 66 claimants. Today, we're filing on behalf of a Kenyan family. Our client or the passenger worked in Saudi Arabia. And next week, we're going to be filing on behalf of an Egyptian family. So we'll be filing in the next couple of weeks a number of cases.
All right, and this is coming after finding the latest evidence regarding the aircraft design issues that have come up ever since both the Lion Air flight and the Ethiopian airplanes crash. What grounds, or how heavy are the grounds of your lawsuit?
Well, as you may know, the entire fleet of the MAX 8 model remains grounded, which means that the mechanical defects have not been resolved. So we are going to try to find the truth behind what happened so that these defects can be corrected.
Right. You'll also be demanding several changes, to regulations governing the process of investigating aircraft accidents as it is in general. Tell us a bit more about that.
And primarily the process of certification. We believe that there was negligence from the part of the Federal Aviation Administration. The FAA really closed an eye and certified this aircraft to fly, not having done due diligence. So that has to be improved.
All right. So you'll be filing that lawsuit today. What do you have to offer the families of Kenyan victims now that you're in the country?
Well, what we can offer to them that's different than any other law firm is that we will make them part of a large group of claimants. As I said, we've been litigating for 10 months already, so we won't begin from zero. And they will be part of a large group, so we will be very strong. We have 66 claimants. Besides that, for monies that are going to be coming from the 100 million fund, and for money that will be coming from the airline, our law firm will not be charging any fees, so we're going to help them for free to collect a lot of this money that could be collected rather quickly and will be very beneficial for them.
At the end of the day, you'll help them collect the money for free, but your services in filing this lawsuit in a U.S. court are not free. How much is that likely to cost the families of the victims? Could that come into play?
Great. For the suits that we're filing in the United States, we are going to charge them a percentage only if we are successful.
Right.
If the suit's filed or if the matter settles prior to litigation, we charge them 20%. If the matter goes to trial or appeals or even the Supreme Court, then we charge them 33%. So it's very reasonable, and it really is pretty standard in the United States when you have a contingency fee agreement where the client doesn't need to pay anything in advance, so we carry all the risk.
Right, and it's interesting because it's quite unheard of for Kenyans who reside in Kenya to move to the U.S. to demand justice there. A civil lawsuit in the U.S. is complicated, it's evidence-driven. Let's talk about the evidence that is already there and how this is likely to involve the families in terms of the emotional trauma that they've already been going through.
So all the design and manufacturing evidence is in the United States.
Right.
The engineers, the manufacturing facilities, all the documents are in the United States. So that is why it's best to file the lawsuits in Chicago, where Boeing has its main place of business. If you were to choose a different forum, such as Ethiopia or Kenya, you wouldn't be able to have access to all of that as easily.
Right.
Besides that, it is in the best interest of everybody to have the FAA recertify the aircraft before it begins to fly again. And if the courts in Chicago order some changes, that these changes be complied by Boeing, and that's something that the local courts here would not be able to do because they wouldn't have jurisdiction over Boeing.
Right, right. I mean, there has been several allegations that the Federal Aviation Administration, for example, had conspired with Boeing, and like you said, to allow unairworthy airplanes to operate and selling them to these airplanes. But there was some legal conundrum that that would not take effect until 6 months of the filing of this suit. So is that evidence still available?
Well, the reason why we're filing these suits now, and the reason
because
why
it is just about 6 months.
Yes, and the reason why we have been filing them or following the whole process from the very beginning is we want to preserve that evidence. We want to make sure that these documents do not disappear. So as far as the FAA, we will probably include them in the litigation in the next few months if we find that that is necessary.
All right, so let's talk about your engagement in Kenya today. You'll be meeting various families of the victims of the crash. What do you seek to gain from these meetings?
Well, during the next 2 or 3 weeks, if not more, we're going to be meeting most of the families in Kenya and Ethiopia, okay? And we are trying to explain to them the advantages of joining our group and pursuing the case in the United States. As I said, we can recover or collect a lot of the money from the fund and from the airline free of charge to them, and then we can include them in a lawsuit in the United States that already has begun 10 months ago. So they will not be beginning from zero. The defects in the aircraft, such as in the Lion Air case and in the Ethiopian Airlines case, are almost identical.
All right.
So all that we would need to do is work on the damages of each family and trying to show Boeing the great losses that they have suffered.
All right, and it's not a lawsuit that will be taken easily. I mean, Boeing will not take this lying down. Let's talk about the consequences for the American airplane maker in the plight of the family's pursuit for justice.
Well, what we have noticed is that Boeing is not really contesting aggressively, as they do in other cases, the issue of liability. So they have pretty much agreed that there is something wrong with their planes. The CEO has made statements that pretty much clarify that issue. So we're concentrating now in proving the damages and trying to get the defects of the aircraft to be corrected so these accidents don't happen again.
I mean, considering the number of victims' families here, like you said, in both cases, 66 victims already that you're representing, how long is this litigation likely to take?
Well, on the 19th of this month, we may resolve the Lion Air cases already. We're going to mediation. In the event that we don't, because of the compensation not being the just amount, in that case we will consolidate both cases and we will proceed to trial. So we will demand that this trial happens as soon as possible.
All right. Let's talk about the terms of compensation, because those have been quite gray as well, you know, with some being told they will be compensated over a number of years. What do the victims' families stand to gain should you win this case against Boeing?
Okay, so because we represent passengers and cabin crew members, the likelihood of losing is not there really. You almost always win these cases.
Right.
So it's just a matter of how much you can get for your clients, and obviously we try to get the highest possible amount. In this case, we're going to demand more than $1 billion. We want to punish Boeing so that they change the way they operate. In this case, they put profits ahead of safety. So that is the main issue here. It's not really, it shouldn't really take that long to accomplish that.
You say that you can offer Kenyan families, you know, a chance of being part of a case that has been going on for the past 10 months already. But what more do you have to offer in terms of expertise, for example, in matters of aviation?
Sure. In our case, our law firm has handled 48 plane crashes of commercial aviation. Okay? We've been litigating for more than 24 years, and we have clients in 74 different countries. So having or handling a case with multiple jurisdictions, with international treaties involved and laws from different countries is nothing new for us. So they will be part of a group that is very strong and very knowledgeable.
All right, let's speak about the families that you will be meeting. I mean, this will be happening in a period of 2 to 3 weeks, like you mentioned. What do they need in order to file this lawsuit with you?
Well, we're focusing on what sort of damages they have suffered. In some cases, they have lost the breadwinner, so they're having a hard time supporting themselves, paying for their children to go to school or just regular expenses of daily living. So we're going to look at that. We're going to analyze each one of the passengers and see their future, their economic losses, and try to quantify that so we can recover that from Boeing.
Right. This coming, again, 6 months after the crash, what do we know as to where Ethiopian Airlines stands on this issue?
Well, Ethiopian Airlines has also lost a lot of revenue, a lot of income. They had to ground their fleet, not just Ethiopian Airlines, but most airlines, all airlines around the world are incurring losses. So they are really in a position where they have to wait for the United States and Boeing to have this plane recertified so they can continue to fly again.
And has any compensation been given so far for both victims of the Lion Air and a Lion Air flight which came before the Ethiopian Airlines, of course?
Unfortunately, the compensation that has been given by the airline to the Lion Air case has been minimal. They've only given them a very small advance at the beginning, and they have not helped them at all. So they are going through a very hard time. In the Ethiopian Airlines case, our clients are able to collect up to $50,000 free of any conditions first. And now that Boeing has set this fund of $100 million, there will be $50 million that will be split among 346 victims. Therefore, each one will be able to get roughly $145,000. And as I mentioned to you, we're going to get that money for them free of charge. All
right. Many thanks. That is Manuel von Ribbeck, attorney of law from Ribbeck Law. It is a U.S.-based law firm which is filing a lawsuit today against aircraft maker Boeing in American courts. They're in Kenya today, in the country, to meet with families of victims of the Ethiopian Airlines crash, about 32 of them from Kenya there. And this will be happening in the next 2 to 3 weeks as they allow the families a chance to sue American airplane maker Boeing for that aircraft accident, rather. We'll be giving you more details on the same. Many thanks for joining us on News Center today, Manuel.
My pleasure.